Welcome to a sparkling new podcast from Mike Parry and Mike Graham. We're the two Mikes.
Actually, it sounds even better when you do it Dullsville, because when you try to be happy and excited and energetic, you sound pathetic.
Look at the light! I think he's a mental pygmy. Look at the light!
Champagne all round and put it on my tab.
This is Talk Sport Extra Time. We are the two Mikes, and it's that time, of course. First of four this week, as ever, to say a very good morning and a warm welcome to Mr. Mike Porky Parry. Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry.
Yeah, good morning, MG. Great to be here again. Got a great week ahead of us. Celebrating, of course, that we've sold out Birmingham.
Yes, we have.
The show on March the 6th. Looking forward to seeing everybody there. But more to the point, more to the issue right now.
I'm glad to see your beard's grown back a bit, by the way, since Friday.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, you had that accident with the baby belling or whatever it was that seemed to have cut yourself to ribbons.
Apparently it's not a baby belling. Apparently that is a cooker.
It is a cooker, You don't try to shame yourself with that.
It was called baby something, but I threw the box away
Babyliss, maybe.
At Christmas or whatever it was, But no, what I did wrong was I forgot to put the cowl on it, or the cover, or whatever it's called. So I just had the raw blade.
There's more of it coming down. You've got a big sideboard you've got now.
Well, yeah,
like one of those Western,
you know what I mean?
Like one of those Western sheriffs.
Yeah, but by the way, talking about Western sheriffs, talking about to show pieces of useless information.
Yeah.
In Wyoming now, which is real cowboy territory, isn't it? I mean, you couldn't get much more cowboy.
It is, yeah.
The local cop in charge of the Wyoming State Police and all that has banned them from wearing cowboy hats.
Has he?
Or cowboy boots.
Wow.
He says the cowboy boots are ridiculous. Cuban heels like that means you can't chase after the villains.
Right.
And the hats are superfluous and make them look clownish.
Right.
So, I mean, you know, that will cause an absolute revolution in Wyoming, wouldn't it? Imagine if the Texas Rangers were told that they couldn't wear hats anymore. They'd all go on strike.
I'm told the deputy has already quit as a result. This guy's deputy has left the force.
What? Because he's told he can't?
Because he's not allowed to wear a hat in his boots.
No, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Sure
but they do look clownish. Whenever you go to Texas, you see these guys walking up and down the high street in Austin, supposedly a modern city, looking like somebody's just come off a film set.
I quite like it, actually.
Well, I suppose it's quite charming,
romantic.
but it's not at all practical, is it?
No.
It's just not practical.
No,
I mean, you know, if they were riding horses up and down the street, that'd be just as ineffective, wouldn't it? You know
well,
what
it
I mean?
would. True.
But anyway, look, we digress. Old Leicester, right? Now, what an extraordinary situation. I've been telling you for months, if not years, that I always thought there was something rather odd about Mr. Pearson, Nigel Pearson, the manager, because he always takes 220 words to say what most people can say in 6.
Well, what we just heard him saying, he probably could have said in 2 sentences, couldn't he?
Absolutely. And he has this method of sort of going all dreamy-like in his head, a fixed stare at the ceiling, then, a few words come, in from the right side of his mouth, then a few words out the left side of his mouth. And
he says things like, I can look after myself.
I can look after myself and all that. I mean, do you remember years ago there was a politician called Neil Kinnock?
Yes.
And he was known as the Welsh windbag.
That's right.
Because he would always use a million words where...
He thought he'd won the election in 92,
yeah, where 22 would suffice. So I reckon Pearson should be sort of name tag Pearson the Plodder.
Right.
Or the Ponderer.
Right.
Pearson the Ponderer, because he ponders on everything, doesn't
he? He didn't ponder about putting his hands around that guy's throat.
Yeah,
though.
But you know what's happened there? I mean, I could tell what happened there from the body language, the psychology of the relationship between him and the player whom he grabbed by the throat.
James McCarthy,
James McCarthy, yeah. What happened there was that started off as an act of aggression because Pearson was annoyed at being knocked over, tumbled over by the player bundling over the line.
Right. And he also didn't know, and he wasn't watching, so he didn't know how it happened.
Quite innocuous, quite innocent, but you're not going to get attacked on the touchline. He should have known that.
Right.
I mean, he gives over the impression of being a highly intelligent man, or wants us to think he's a highly intelligent man. He's acting like a highly intelligent, deep-thinking man.
Yeah.
So he knows that if something bundles your legs away on the touchline at a football, on the edge of a football pitch, it's probably a player inadvertently bashing into you.
Yeah.
Unless the referee's decided to attack you or something like that, So he should have known that. But then the red mist came down, so he grabbed the player to start off with as an act of aggression, and then realised what he was doing.
And then realised he was in front of a load of people.
Yeah, and a load of cameras and all that kind of stuff. And then decided, actually, I better turn this into a joke.
Yeah.
So he then went, like, in a 180-degree U-turn and started, instead of, trying to strangle a bloke, sort of getting all affectionate with him, to the extent where he wouldn't let him go, and he had his shirt, because he was almost, in my view, the body language was begging to say, we're mates, aren't we? We're mates, you know? I thought it was
Very
extraordinary.
Odd. very odd. Even Alan Pardew, who's not averse to putting the nut on the odd player every now and again, even he was baffled by the whole thing.
He stayed well away.
But the thing that I'm most amazed about was that piece of information we got tonight, which I wasn't aware of, that he had this terrible experience with wolves when he was out in Romania. Did you hear that?
No,
we were talking about it earlier. That apparently Nigel Pearson likes to go walking a lot, a bit like yourself.
Right.
Likes to walk on his own.
Yeah.
And he went off on a backpacking tour of Romania.
Oh, right,
and he was attacked by a pack of wolves.
Really?
And according to Wild Dogs, it says, Pearson was walking alone when confronted by the pack. One dog went straight for him, trying to occupy his attention, while the other four circled behind, looking to bite his legs. Pearson blinded a couple with his walking pole, then fended the others off before diving into stinging nettles because he'd read the dogs don't like them because of their sensitive noses. I'm looking at your face. I mean, I can't believe it either.
Extraordinary
It's
story.
an amazing story. Apparently, then it went quiet.
Sounds like Brer Rabbit.
Pearson thought the dogs had gone, so he set off walking again, but the pack was waiting and attacked again. And he says, with sweat pouring off him, Pearson backed up against a tree and poked with his walking pole at the eyes of the dogs until they gave up.
I mean, blinding dogs to keep them away.
Yeah.
Where did this story come from?
Well, it's in the Telegraph this morning, but it's being recounted by Henry Winter, who says that this is something that happened in his past.
And he knew. Did Henry know about it before?
Well, yeah, I think he did. Yeah.
So it's an extraordinary
apparently
story.
The story that circulates
these wild dogs.
Apparently, the story that circulates in football, because you know how things get exaggerated,
yes,
is that he actually fought off a wild bear. But in fact, it wasn't a wild bear. It was
a load of wild dogs.
It was a pack of dogs.
Well, that's an extraordinary story. And going around blinding dogs with your pole. Good job he had his pole. If he hadn't done his pole, he'd be dead.
He would.
But I mean, the latest development is this row now that's broken up between Pearson and the Match of the Day officials, including our very own Danny Murphy.
And he makes this interesting comment in his press conference yesterday, which says, "I don't care what they think. I pay my taxes.
I pay my tax." So he's insinuating, I presume, that was pointed at Gary Lineker.
Yeah.
We all know
and
Gary
Danny Murphy.
Well, Danny Murphy, of course, has already been the subject of a story about, but that wasn't about not paying taxes.
No.
That was about getting involved in a tax scheme, allegedly.
Right. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that he's now called them the three founts of knowledge, and it's all their fault. But, this is shooting the messenger all over again.
Of course it is.
If the incident hadn't taken place on the touchline, it wouldn't have been spoken about in Match of the Day.
No.
And Match of the Day and their presenters had a responsibility to talk about the most extraordinary incident of the day.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
And also, it's great, is it not, to have people on Match of the Day who actually say something which is in any way critical, because there was a time when that would never happen.
Well,
and none of the pundits on Match of the Day would ever say anything against anyone who was involved in football.
I really don't know. I mean, since
really don't know.
What I'm saying to you is, whenever I've worked with Danny Murphy, he's always spoken his mind. Anyway,
that's what I'm saying.
He's
that's
very
why it's great that he was on there.
Yeah, it could be, yeah. But I never thought there was a problem. But look, what I was going to say was, since Match of the Day, surely he's got much more to worry about than the analysis by three professional punters, former footballers.
Pundits.
Pundits, that's right. That's
and
the word I was
punters,
looking for.
if you like.
And punters, yeah. And surely he realises now that his life has been so extraordinary in the last 36 hours that the Match of the Day thing is completely irrelevant. Don't know why he's suddenly gone on that. Shouldn't he be actually saying, well, actually, according to, reports circulating today, it was the father who sacked me and the son who reinstated me. Right. I either admit or deny that. I mean, he must know. He was getting the phone calls from people saying you're fired, and then another one saying, no, you're not fired. Right. And I think he'd even gone to see two members of his backroom staff and told them that they were fired.
They'd all been fired as well, supposedly. I think people will turn up at the Emirates tonight dressed as packs of wild dogs just to wind him up.
I don't know. They might do for old Pearson, the ponderer.
Yeah, absolutely right.
The Leicester Lothario, he might think himself to be.
Pardon?
You know what I mean? The Leicester Lothario.
Why would he think that?
Well, Lothario is a man who sort of delivers dramatic statements, I
thought Lothario was a man that was rather sort of loose with women.
No. That's a complete calumny and an aggravation of an English word.
Rubbish.
No,
it's not an English word, by the way. Lothario is not an English word.
It's an Italian word, actually. If you are Lotharietic, you're right. Lotharietic. It means you deliver drama, you deliver soliloquies.
Really?
They're usually about yourself. The idea that it's attached to any form
of... Well, you'd be an expert in that.
The idea it's attached to any form of romance is nonsense.
Is it?
Well, I mean, it has been adapted like that and adopted that way, but not in the pure form of it when it was introduced into the English language in 1630s, around about the 1630s.
Right. We'll double check that, and I'll give you a definition coming up next.
Please do.
Here we are, the two Mikes. He's Mike Parry. I'm Mike Gray.
And the girls respond to the call. I have a boy shout out.
Who let the dogs out?
This is TalkSport Extra Time. We are the two Mikes. He's Mike Parry, I'm Mike Graham, and I suppose they're playing that song because they did let an awful lot of dogs out over the weekend. I had a fabulous day on Sunday, taking my dog to be reunited with his mother and as many of the siblings as they could get to after a year. There was about 7 or 8 Labradors all running around in this field. It's amazing.
Well, I wanted to hear all about this. Yeah. I mean, all these little Labradors running around, all so it's like they're all brothers and sisters, right? So they all met each other again for the first time.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
and are they all jumping on top of each other and having fun and playing?
It was great. Yeah, because the woman who sold us the dogs, she's a breeder up in north of London.
Yes,
and she does it for a living. And one of them is actually going to be in Crufts next week. Because
really,
she's a proper breeder. Yeah, and so he was not allowed to go out and play because he had to be in his best behaviour.
Oh,
so
I
he didn't get injured.
Oh, well, that's cruel.
No, he couldn't come out.
Oh, could he see through a window?
He could see them all.
Oh, that's terrible.
He was going nuts.
Do you know what that's like? That's like being the kid in the school who can't get his sums right. Oh, by the way, I want to talk to you about sums. The kid in the school who couldn't get his sums right, and he's kept in the classroom until he gets his sums right, and all the kids are outside playing football.
Well, maybe that's why he should get his sums.
That kid was me.
Well, because you weren't very good at maths.
I wasn't very good at maths. Well, I've become very good at maths because I learnt my lesson.
Right.
And in fact,
there you are then.
During the course of this show, there's a big debate going on in education at the moment about whether children should be taught their times tables or not, whether they should be allowed. Oh, yeah, huge row. Yeah. So through the course of the next 2 hours, I want you to just throw, multiplication questions at
7
me.
times 6.
7, 6, 32.
Wrong.
7, 6 is 42. 7, 6, 42. 42. But I mean, any time.
I knew that would happen.
Any time, just throw it at me and I'll get them. I'll get them because you know why?
9 nines.
9 nines is 81.
Very good.
Because when my dad used to take us to school in the car, right, all the way to school, because he believed in the times tables, he would always.
How come you ended up getting locked in the classroom then? If you were so brilliant.
Because although I could do the times tables, I couldn't do algebra.
Right.
Couldn't do algebra very well, and I couldn't get this question right. And the teacher said, "No, you can't go outside until you've got it right."
Right.
Just think.
Well, maybe I'll
carefully.
give you a couple of algebra equations.
No, I wouldn't be able to get those. I'm no good at. I couldn't understand
How
what
about logarithms? Were you any good at those?
X over V2 meant. No.
Logarithms.
One of my cousins ended up at Liverpool University doing double calculus or something like that. I mean, it's incredibly.
No, it's complicated.
It's no wonder he ended up as a top civil engineer building bridges in Dubai and all that kind of stuff.
Really?
But yeah, brilliant boy, brilliant boy.
They had any bridges in Dubai?
The sort of things they build in
desert,
Dubai.
Isn't it?
Yeah, but they do have bridges. They have bridges between buildings, from one building to another and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But, no, what I was going to say about your dogs is, and it sounds great. If, there are so many political parties knocking around now. I mean, like almost 7 now nominated for the leaders' debates and all that.
I know, it's getting ridiculous.
I have got an absolutely serious plan to take up a franchise which I think could get me into Parliament by choosing an issue and a subject and a party.
Well, like a single issue type thing?
Yes.
Right.
And do you know what it'd be?
What would it be? Drinking?
No. It would be called the Pets Party.
Pets Party?
Yeah. Now, you've just talked about your dog, right? 1 in 2 households...
Well, not for very long, now that you've taken over.
No.
I thought you wanted to hear the story.
I do want to see the story.
Well, I haven't heard any of the story
I thought
yet.
you told me the story. I thought they were all playing in the field and jumping on top of each other.
That's the only story you want. Is that it, then? That's my story.
Is there another story?
Well, we've only been back on for about a minute.
Well, come on, tell me about it then.
Well, I've got lots of other
we're all
things to tell
waiting
you.
with bated breath. What is it?
Well, I'll tell you what was interesting about it was how they all interacted with one another, because most of them were boy dogs, but there was 1 or 2 little girl dogs as well.
Yeah.
And there was one particular male dog that was over-excitable, shall we say, and kept trying to sort of force himself upon this other dog.
Oh, that's terrible.
And at one point also tried to force himself on his own mother.
Oh, God.
Which just goes to show you that dogs really don't have any kind of sense of any of that. So I'm not sure if they actually knew that they were related. But
I see.
And the most amazing thing was the woman herself, Susie, who's the trainer and the woman who's taking this dog to Crufts. She still has this amazing ability just to whistle in a particular way, and they all came to her. Right. And they all just sat around her. She was like the Pied Piper.
Really?
It was remarkable.
It's a good job it's not me, because I can't whistle.
Yeah, I know, you'd be able to do that.
Yeah.
There's lots of other things I could tell you, but you carry on with your pets party.
No,
you carry on.
I want to hear.
I did tweet a picture out, which you're completely obviously oblivious to. You didn't notice it over the weekend.
But
did you not see the picture I sent out?
Do you know, I can't remember seeing it.
I don't think you did.
But maybe I didn't. Maybe, did you put it out on the 2 mics?
No, I put it out just on my own Twitter.
OK, well, I'll have a look for it tonight. Don't worry,
I'm
sure
much.
it'll be great.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you see, I gave you more space and time to tell us an interesting story about your dogs.
Yeah.
And then you told us a mucky story about dogs all jumping on top of each other.
No, it's not a mucky
story. Which I don't really think our listeners wanted to hear.
Well, it's not a mucky story. It's a story about real life.
Well, OK. All right. Well, listen, what I was going to say is 1 in 2 households have some form of a pet.
Yes.
Either a dog or a
How's the
cat.
pet tortoise search coming along, by the way?
Well, yes, that's they have a tortoises, budgerigars.
No, you I'm talking about.
Parrots.
You're going to get a pet tortoise.
Well, I've got to sort out the old roof garden first, haven't I? I mean, until I've got
we'll have an update on that in a minute.
until I've got a safe environment for the tortoise to live in, wouldn't be much point in
I
getting
don't think
a
you put
tortoise.
him on a roof guard. He might throw himself off.
No, you can't. He can't. Don't worry. There's high railings and
you
walls
sure
on the
about
other side. Oh yeah. No problem at all. Now, don't you think this is a brilliant idea? Don't you think? And if you said I'm for. I mean, some people have got horses. Some people have got small holdings. They've got chickens. They've got animals.
This place that this woman has, she's got a 250-acre farm, right?
Wow, that's big.
Horses all over the place, and they all belong to other people, because we said, are they your horses?
Oh,
She said,
I
no.
see.
So people just rent space from her.
Yeah,
so
I see. The
she
fields.
does very well.
Yeah. But I mean, do you see what I mean? We so love pets. I mean, I had a girlfriend once, right? She had 2 cats.
Right.
And I don't like cats. I mean, I just don't like them. I think they're sinister.
Sinister?
Yeah, absolutely
What
sinister.
makes you think they're sinister?
I think cats... Do you know what? I think cats' brains are controlled by a force outside the knowledge of a human being. What are you laughing at? I do.
Some kind of cat master?
Yeah, I do.
So where does the cat master live?
You know, I think there's a planet out there somewhere which beams thoughts directly into cats' brains, because they're so sinister and so sneaky and so...
Well, they're very self-contained, aren't they? That's
they're
the word
evil,
I would
aren't
use.
they?
No.
Cats, they're evil.
They're not evil.
They are.
Have you had some kind of bad incident with a cat or something?
Well, not really. I mean, I tell you what, I had a house once which I was renting out, and I'd never allowed pets or anything. And this woman
So
came...
you want to be the representative of the pets party?
Yeah.
And when it turns out that as a landlord, you don't actually allow people to have pets in any of your premises,
I don't.
Don't you think that's going to be a bit of a hypocritical stand?
No, not really, because you have to make sure that, you know, pets don't live in environments that they can wreck, because you don't want them to. But the cats urinate all over the place. Urinate on curtains and carpets and all that.
You train them properly.
Well, you don't know that they're trained, do you? And somebody comes along. But anyway...
Have you ever had a cat?
No. Of course I haven't had a cat. Why? What are you laughing at?
Because once again, you're an expert on something, but you've never had one.
No, they're sinister cats. I've had dog. Well, I had one dog.
You've never had you had a dog that banged its head into the wall repeatedly until it died.
That was very, very sad indeed.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say was, this couple came along, and it was a normal viewing and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And on the way out, and they were downsizing. What they were doing was they were renting out their big sort of 6 or 7 bedroom house because their children had gone and all that kind of stuff, and they were renting a 3-bedroom house that I owned. And
pocketing the difference, presumably.
Exactly, yeah. So on the way out, the chap said, it'll be absolutely marvellous and all that. And he said to me, out of his wife's earshot, he said, be all right with the cats, will it? And I said, cats? I said, no, I'm sorry, we'll only... He said, what? And his eyes...
How many cats did he have?
I don't know. I'd never got round to asking because his eyes went sort of black with fear. You see what I mean? Because you're going to have to tell his wife...
Well, you have to tell the cats as well.
Yeah.
They obviously wouldn't take well to it.
This dream house, which they said was absolutely perfect for what they wanted. I think he was some kind of architect or something. And this had 3 floors. The top floor was just one big room, which was used as an office and all that kind of stuff, And I said, no, you can't have any cats. And he was pleading with me. I said, no, I'm sorry, I don't allow cats. I said, cats urinate on carpets and all this kind of stuff. He said, well, ours don't. I said, well, I don't know that. And so I had this row, stand-up row on the path and all that. I said, no.
Did he not offer you more money or anything?
Well, I wouldn't have accepted it anyway. I'm a man of principle. But, so anyway, but what I was saying, I had the girlfriend who had 2 cats, right? You
must have lived in constant fear when you were around there.
Well, I didn't like it. I mean, they were allowed in the bedroom or anything like that, But on one occasion...
What, you or the cats?
No, the cats, of course, you idiot.
Just checking.
On one occasion, I thought I had food poisoning, and I was, asked to go and call the doctor and find me a doctor, and she wouldn't, because it was the day that she had to take her cats to be vaccinated at the vets rather, and I found that a terrible insult.
Well, people are very attached to their pets.
To me, but
she clearly didn't think much of you.
Well, she couldn't have done, because I was reduced, below the level of the needs of a cat or 2 cats, which used to carry around in these stupid little boxes that they carry cats around.
You ever try to get one of them into those if you want to take it to the vets?
No. I don't want anything to do with cats, honestly. Cats,
but you want to represent
really
the pets party, though.
Yeah, but I mean,
I don't see how you can square this up.
Well, most of the pets would be dogs, because we all love dogs, don't we?
Do the dogs party then?
Well, that's not a big enough franchise, I don't think. But you understand what I'm saying, don't you? That this would be very, very popular because, people have all sorts of political opinions, they have particular political affiliations, they have feelings about how the economy should be run. But one thing we all know is that we love our pets.
Well, you don't love cats, though.
Well, I don't hate cats.
I've already spotted a huge problem with your argument.
No, I don't hate cats.
You've just called them evil.
I think they're sinister.
You've just said that you wouldn't allow any of them in your house.
No, I wouldn't, no.
So how is that in any way supportive of cats?
Yeah, but you don't understand. I'm not banning people from having cats. I'm just saying
that's all right, then.
Cats don't suit me.
Right.
I'd have a little dog. I'd have a dog.
But that's all right if you're just an ordinary person. But if you're claiming that you want to be a politician elected by the people, for the people, and to do the people's will, on the basis that you're a great lover of pets, you can't really stand, can you, if you hate cats?
No, but what I'm saying is I wouldn't persecute people who are cat owners.
Well,
you see what I mean?
Right, then. Good.
They can have their cats as long as they don't bring anywhere near me.
Right.
If I was having a surgery on a Saturday morning,
like
politicians do, I wouldn't want any cats in the room.
It'd be a bit difficult for the old, photo opportunity. And here he is, the president of the Pets Party.
Yeah.
Please don't breed cats.
That's what I would be. I would be the president of the Pets Party. But no, I wouldn't mind if they brought a cat in a little cage. They carry these cats around in cages and all this kind of stuff.
What happens because otherwise if you let them out, God knows what happens.
Well,
they start running the country.
They run off. Cats run off.
They start running the country.
I mean, what do cats get up to when they leave their homes at night? They go off and kill birds.
Well, no, they go off and have a big secret meeting with the cat guy,
I'll tell you what, they go off and they kill birds and they kill other animals. They are evil. Cats are predators. Everybody knows they're predators. Even this girl I went out with, one time she came down one morning, went out onto the patio and found the cat mauling a bird, which had got trapped in the corner. Can you imagine being a little bird, tweet, 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 and this huge animal, because that's what a cat looks like to a little robin, comes pouncing towards you. It would be like you being attacked by a dinosaur.
Or a pack of dogs.
Or a pack of dogs in Nigel Pearson's case, yeah. But I mean, what I'm saying is, you have to treat animals as you find them. And there's something really dodgy about cats.
Yeah, there speaks the ex-head of the Pets Party. This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. He is Mike Parry. And let me read you this. Lothario is a male first name which came to connote an unscrupulous seducer of women in The Impertinent Curiosity, which is a meta-story in Don Quixote.
OK, I'll accept that, but that was the interpretation of it. It's not what it meant when the word was first uttered by, and passed through the human lips, if you see what I mean.
An allusion is made to Lothario and William Faulkner's Absalom when referring to Charles Bond, the proclaimed ladies' man and woman seducer who is about to marry a woman while already being married.
Well, let me make it absolutely clear. I'm not suggesting for a minute that Nigel Pearson is a woman seducer or anything like that.
That would be wrong.
No, my interpretation of the word Lothario is a stage player, right?
Really?
Because that's what it relates to. It relates to theatre. It does honestly relate to theatre. That's the origin of the word. And being on the stage and delivering soliloquies. That's the interpretation I have of the word. And that's how I've applied it to Mr. Pearson, not in any other way.
Well, here's another one. In Stephen Sondheim's 1971 musical Follies, an all-female chorus in the song Who's That Woman? Sings the lyrics, who's the saddest gal in town? Who's been riding for a fall? Who's Lothario let her down?
Yeah. Well, you see, that
I haven't found anything yet.
Okay. Well, believe me, if you delve far enough back into the English language, you will see that my interpretation of it is, in fact, accurate.
Well, it may well be, but you would be unwise to use it in any other form because nobody else understands it in any other way.
Okay, well, I'll withdraw it then as a description of Mr. Pearson.
Really?
Okay? Yes, I will, yeah.
I'm astonished.
No. Until I can come back here with, an ancient Oxford English dictionary to prove my point. Because until then, you'll just start taking the mickey.
Not at all. I just want it to be accurate. We like to be accurate on the show.
Of course we do.
Now, tell me about these charitable works that you've been boasting about on Twitter. Because just before you came into here tonight, you put out on Twitter that you'd be talking about your new charity. Now, I thought you'd given up on charitable works because you're not happy about where the money goes.
I've given up on direct debit donations blindly to international charities, huge international charities, because I agree with you. You don't know where the money goes, and you kind of get the feeling they spend an awful lot of money in administration, you know what I mean?
Correct.
However, I have said since then, my charity work would be more direct. So, for instance, I support an abandoned horse charity down in Surrey, run by a friend of mine, which I'm very, very happy to do. They've got to do in London quite soon, a sort of a night in, a sort of restaurant, that sort of stuff. So I'm doing all that.
So most of your charitable work basically involves hosting dinners, doesn't it?
No, I'm about to tell you what I did the weekend. I decided it was time for giving. So anyway, I was having a bit of a clear out, right? Got to the fridge and I found out that most of the beers I keep in my fridge, And I always keep beer because people come round, they want a beer, they can have a beer. You know, my family like beers and all that kind of stuff.
Is this in Bournemouth, down in Portsmouth?
This is down in Gosport, yeah.
Right. Because you don't have anyone coming round in Surrey, do you?
Well, yeah, sometimes.
When you invited me round there and we only left 5 minutes and we left again.
Well, that's because we were going to my other home, weren't we? So we went there to get the car.
You didn't say, would you like a beer while I'm getting ready with it?
Well, no, I didn't actually. No, that's true.
You didn't offer me a beer?
No, I didn't want you to sort of plonk yourself down on the couch and get comfortable, you know what I mean?
Right.
Don't like people getting comfortable in my place. So anyway, I decided to clear out the fridge of the beers, right? Now, the reason being is because I'd had a conversation with somebody recently.
Yeah.
I thought beer was everlasting, you know what I mean? I didn't think it dated. But
I think it does eventually.
Apparently it does.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd better check it all out. So I checked it out, and in fact, some of the beers at the back of the fridge date back to the year 10. So that means...
so what, 10 AD?
Yeah, like 5 years.
No, I'm talking about 10 AD.
Oh,
like
no, you fool. No. 2010. 2010, of course, you idiot. And so what are you looking
That is
at?
old.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I looked at all the other cans, and what do you keep laughing for? Why can't you just listen?
Because the year 10, it's just
No,
incredible.
it's not the year 10, you fool.
That's what you said.
Yeah, I obviously meant this century 10, didn't I, to try and put it into perspective, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Anyway.
That's not that long, actually, for canned beer. Is it cans or bottles?
Cans.
All right.
They're all cans. Yeah, I thought, well...
So that shows you how often you get people round there, doesn't it?
Well, no, there's a lot of cans, honestly, a lot of cans in the door and the back of the fridge.
Why haven't you been drinking them?
And some cases of beer in the spare room.
Are these all freebies you're talking about?
No.
You've actually bought all these?
You know, each Christmas you buy a load of beer, don't you, and it doesn't get drunk.
No.
So anyway, I worked out I had about 30 cans of beer, which were out of date.
Right.
Didn't all go back to 10. Some went back to 12, some went to 13. However, I thought probably better not to drink it. So I passed it all up, and I took it out, went and found some down and outs and gave it to them. You know, people who...
That's nice of you.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean.
Well, how much beer did you give them?
I gave them 30 cans.
That's not wise, is it? How many of them were there?
Oh, I don't know, altogether, because I walked around a bit, about probably half a dozen people.
What, you actually went around carrying all of this in a bag?
I did, in a box.
Really? What, so you're contributing to them and the drink problem, in other words?
Well, not really. I mean, what would you do with those beers? You'd have to unplug them, so to speak. You know what I mean? What do you call it?
Open
the pull.
Open them.
Yeah, open them. That's right.
Yeah.
And then pour it away down the sink and all that. What a terrible waste. These people. I mean, look. I'm not saying that they were of the level of distilling alcohol from bottles of meths or anything like that.
Right.
But I mean, you know, people who want to drink do go to desperate levels.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, a bit of aged beer isn't going to hurt them. You know what I mean? Although I, didn't want to give it to my guests or anything.
It's probably not that great for you.
Well, no, but I mean, I bet they can't tell the difference because
It might not even have any kick to it anymore. Maybe the alcohol's all gone.
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Did you tell them they were old?
No, I just handed them out, and they thought
you must
I
have
was.
said something.
I just said, "Who wants a beer?" I said, "I'm getting rid of these beers. You want a beer?" And of course, they're all attached by the plastic thing at the top, so there's 4 at a time, really. You know what I mean? And I just
those are
handed
the
them
things that dolphins really don't like.
Well, that is true.
Let's hope they're not going to throw them in the sea.
Well, I hope not. I hope not. You're absolutely right.
You should have cut those with scissors.
On reflection, I should have done. I will do next time. And I thought, well, I've made somebody's day because they really don't care. I mean, Paul Gascoigne said once, and he's had all sorts of problems with alcohol, which are well documented.
Yeah.
If he sees a guy in the street and he's down and out and he's on his uppers, he goes and buys him a bottle of whiskey and gives it to him because the man lives a short-term life and he's not looking.
Well, I mean, I don't think Gazza should be in a position to do that.
Well,
really,
he's not looking for what the world holds for him the day after tomorrow. He's looking for what the world holds for him à ce moment.
Right.
You know what I mean?
At the moment.
And I have exactly the same view.
Right.
That these guys would have found me to be a guardian angel, really, more than anything else, because I was bringing them a relief.
Well, as long as they don't all become violently ill as a result of drinking this really ancient beer of yours.
They won't, will they? They won't.
I don't know.
They won't. We know, for instance, don't we? We know, for instance, that most foods sell-by dates are actually only the people who manufacture them protecting themselves.
They're guidance.
They have no idea how long food lasts. They have no. I mean, crikey, if you threw away everything that had a sell-by date in it on the date of the sell-by, you wouldn't eat any food, would you?
No, you wouldn't.
You wouldn't.
Or you just buy it reasonably carefully.
Yes, exactly. But anyway, I thought I was spreading goodwill.
I'm slightly concerned that we're going to be reading about this mystery benevolent character who's been handing out free cans of beer to people, then something's going to go horribly wrong.
No, I don't think it can.
They're all going to, it sounds like the plot of one of those TV cop shows,
No.
They're all going to develop some kind of weird disease, and they're going to trace it all back to you.
Why should they?
Trace it all back to... It might have nothing to do with you.
Why should they?
But you put yourself in that situation.
No, I think the worst thing that could happen is, as you quite rightly say, it might have gone a bit flat.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they don't worry about that. These people's desperate need is, for a drink.
You shouldn't be fueling that, though.
Well, I think I should, because I think...
What if they get more drunk and commit more crime or something?
No. You see, it's not strong brew or anything like that. What do they call it?
Special brew.
Special brew. It was just ordinary cans of beer, and in my view, whatever they were drinking in its place, like that crazy cider stuff that blows your mind.
Crazy cider?
Yeah.
It's really cheap now, that.
Yeah, that's
like
what I'm
White
saying.
Lightning or something.
That's right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Or sherry, or even, hard spirits, liquor, whiskey, gin.
A bottle of brandy.
Yeah, even that. In my view, by giving them these cans of beer, I was actually helping them to return to more of a level playing field and, a planet on which they could recognise rather than Doolalliesville.
Well, they might be expecting you to do it every weekend now.
Well, I don't think they will. I just said, "Hey, fellas, and..."
Did they get your car? Did they see your car?
No, I kept my car well away.
Did you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If I saw them around, I wasn't going to put my car there. I thought they might attack it or something like that. You know what I mean? I parked it 200 yards away.
Sounds like a very, very dodgy charitable outfit.
No. I think it's the act of giving, isn't it? And the act of giving is truly something that warms my heart.
No, I think it's more about you getting adulation from people you've never met before. TalkSport Extra Time with the two mics. We're going to find out what Porky means by his new charitable exercise. Very clearly.
That's charitable.
No,
that's charitable.
If you can't hear the B syllable, it actually means there's something wrong with your ears.
No, you're bumbling your way through
not at all.
another
I say charitable.
misinterpretation of the English
very
language.
Clear. We'll play it again a little bit later. You want to hear it again?
No, thank you, I don't. No. Let's talk to somebody who speaks the English language perfectly, please.
Yeah, and who can hear the B syllable without fear or favour. It's Sandra Lee, our correspondent down in Australia. Sandra, very good morning to you.
G'day, chaps. How are you?
Very well indeed.
Very well
I'm
indeed,
sure you
thank
could clearly hear me enunciate charitable there. Charitable, the way I say it.
It's the way you say it, exactly. Yeah. I heard it. It was a soft B, but it was a B nonetheless.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, thanks for the support, Sandra.
Let me read you what Bill says, having listened to Porky's latest charitable venture. He says, nice to see Mr. Parry carrying out euthanasia on the homeless alcoholics through poisoning.
What? That's absolutely mad.
He's basically getting rid of all his old tinnies, as you call them down there, by handing them out to the homeless.
Yeah, they're all about 3 years out of date, but I thought, well, I'd rather have them than be thrown away. So that's what I was charitably doing. But you've got bigger worries than the homeless down there, Sandra, haven't you? You've got more shark attacks.
We've got another 2 shark attacks in the last 2 days. In fact, it's been one was a fatality and another one wasn't, thankfully, but it's more sharks.
Golly, that's bad news. Does that mean people now are going to go into mass panic and stay away from the beaches? Is that going to cause problems in the tourist industry, all this sort of thing?
I don't think it'll cause too much problems to the tourist industry because the beaches that have been closed, there's about 15 kilometres worth of beaches that have been closed over the last few days. And they're mostly surfer beaches and beaches for people who sort of live along them. The main sort of tourist beaches have not been closed at this stage. But it's pretty serious stuff when you close 15 kilometres of prime surfing beach.
Well, it really is. And where were these latest attacks compared to where the others have been? Because you and I have spoken, I suppose, over the course of the last, 6 months? There's been, on average, you'd say, Mike, about one a month, hasn't there?
Oh, yeah, more than one a month. We've had several attacks in the past year, and in fact, we've had 6 fatalities in the last year, including 4 in the past 5 months alone. So, I mean, those statistics are getting up there.
Yeah, when you said people who live along the beaches, Sandra, I mean, do you have a community down there on these beaches? Because you never have any rain in lots of parts of Australia where people literally do live on the beach. You know, Jim Rockford style, a sort of caravan on the edge of the beach, and that's where people live.
No, they live in pretty much houses or, nice sort of summer shacks along the beach and up in the sand dunes, but they don't actually live on the beach itself.
No, I see, OK. Now, the other situation in Australia, Sandra, is the political situation.
Well, I haven't finished talking about the sharks yet.
What do you mean?
I haven't finished talking about the sharks yet.
Sandra doesn't want to talk about the sharks
I've
to you
got
anymore.
another question for her.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because since I actually read the story,
I see, yeah. Go on,
I know actually what happened.
Go on.
I understand, Sandra, that there's a shark expert who's been brought in now to try and determine which... Yeah. Well, that would be a good idea, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Which species was actually responsible, and presumably they still don't know whether this shark is at large, do they?
Well, the shark is at large because none have been caught over the last 24 hours and they're still looking for it. But these are incredibly migratory species, and they do suspect it could be a great white, which is probably the most lethal of the sharks. And they think that because of the way it attacked this poor Japanese tourist who'd been living in Australia for a year, and basically it severed both his legs in one fell chomp and half of his surfboard. And I mean, I just find it incredible that a whole pile of other, shocking, but other surfers actually went in the water and got him out and got him back to the beach and tried to, save him with CPR. Unfortunately, he just bled to death.
Oh, yeah, I suppose you would. And it was good of Mike Graham to point out that a shark expert was on the scene. I mean, it could have been an alligator expert, Mike, couldn't it, or something like that, you know what I mean?
Well, the fact that they've had to call somebody in specifically, I thought was important to
of course it was. Thanks for pointing that out. Now, Sandra, I was going to talk to you about politics. I am a bit of an expert in Australian politics, of course, and I don't know
what's the name of the Prime Minister?
Abbott.
What's his first name?
Tony
Abbott.
And he's been saved, hasn't he, in some sort of deal that's been cooked up.
He has. He's just he's managed to get through by the skin of his teeth. Yesterday they had a party room vote on whether or not to actually have a spill. So they weren't voting on whether they wanted him to remain in the prime ministership, but what they were voting on is whether they wanted to actually decide whether that was the next step to go. And in fact, he got through by 61 votes to 39 against. So he seems to be safe for now, but, there's a lot of people who are watching politics and watch it closely say there are more sharks in Canberra than what there are in the oceans.
Well, that could be the case.
That's very true, now, And I mean, he's been on pretty sort of thin ice ever since he tried to award the Duke of Edinburgh a knighthood in Australia.
Unbelievable, giving a Duke a knighthood. But there's one person down there, Sandra, who I've been keeping an eye on for quite a long time. Her name is... What are you laughing at?
Sorry, go ahead.
Her name is Peta Credlin, and I think she's Tony Abbott's chief of staff, and she is a fearsome woman, is she not?
She is a fearsome woman, and in fact, she is at the heart of his problems.
Right.
She's his right-hand woman, his chief of staff, so basically she is his Praetorian Guard. If you want to get to the Prime Minister, you have to go through Peta Credlin, and she is... seriously, a tough-talking woman. She brooks no intolerance, and she has got a lot of his cabinet members offside, a lot of the backbenchers, the people who get nearly $200,000 a year to do very little. She's got a lot of them offside because she doesn't let them have access to the Prime Minister. And, of course, they've all wanted her to be booted from his office so that they have greater access to him. And he has so far, one of his virtues is loyalty, and he has so far refused to do anything about her.
And where did she come from? What's her background? Because Alistair Campbell was obviously that man for Tony Blair. And I mean, did she come from the journalism world as well?
No, she didn't come from the journalism world. She's pretty much been sort of in business, and then for about the last 10 years she's been in politics. And in fact, the curious thing is that she once worked for Malcolm Turnbull, who is his most fierce rival, and who, had there been a spill, many suspect he may have got the vote over the line, but he's not as much liked by the public as he is by some of the lefties.
That's a fascinating scenario, isn't it? How long is the Abbott government due to run now?
It's got about another 18 months before he has to start announcing whether he will call another election. So at sometimes in the middle to the end of 2016, there will be an election, if not before.
Yeah, and are you suffering now from a downturn in China because of the iron ore situation, all that sort of thing?
What?
Yeah.
Are you suffering from what?
China's on a downturn.
Yeah.
China are the biggest purchasers of iron ore in the world.
Well, you might want to explain that.
Australia are the biggest manufacturers of iron ore in the world. I mean, does this make any sense to you, Mike?
No,
it's basic economics.
No, I'm just thinking of people who are listening to the show who've got no idea what you just said.
No, people listen to the show.
You suddenly talk
are
about
brighter
iron ore.
than you. Well, people know that China buys iron ore from Australia, and they know that China's in recession because not so many Rolls Royces are being shipped out there.
Neither did the producer.
So, Sandra, I'll let you answer the question now, please.
You're right, Mike. China is not buying as much iron ore, and as a result, our government receipts have gone down, which means that we have an ever-looming debt, and it's growing by the day. We're paying at the moment $100 million a day in interest on our debt, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, I know, but
it's not Newsnight.
Yeah, but it's so informative, isn't it? So informative.
No, this is not what we do.
Sandra and I think it's informative.
Yeah,
only you, a blockhead like you, could think it's...
Sandra, tell us, just just to, to get old Porky, he's obviously been stuffing the Financial Times up his nose or something for the last 20 hours, so that we can get back to reality. What's the biggest story in Australia at the moment?
Well, it is politics at the moment, and sharks. Those are the two biggest stories. That's the only thing that's dominating the front pages for the last week.
Is there anything about iron ore on the front pages?
Yeah, no, that's not on there.
No.
Oh,
no.
Well,
Thank you.
I would imagine there is.
Thank you very much.
I saw an iron ore train once, Sandra.
You saw what?
An iron ore train.
Was it a lion ore train?
No,
you said a lion ore train.
No, an iron ore train.
Is there a giraffe in it?
No, it wasn't a giraffe in it, you idiot. I saw. Why would there be a giraffe on an iron ore train?
You told me that they transport giraffes by train.
Oh, well, they do, yeah, but not on this one.
And once they got that one hit by a bridge, and
this
died.
this iron ore train, going across Western Australia, was 1.5 miles long. Can you corroborate that?
Yep, that's absolutely right. They go for miles. Well, they go for 1.5 miles. There you are.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fascinating. You got any more boring facts you want to tell us?
Can you imagine standing at the roadside in the remotest part of Western Australia, seeing a train go by, and it's still going by 20 minutes later?
Well, worse than that is if you're waiting at a level crossing.
Sorry?
It'd be worse if you were waiting at a level crossing.
Yeah, well, actually, it would be. I think the vehicle I was on was waiting at a level crossing.
The vehicle? What sort of vehicle were you on?
Sorry?
What sort of vehicle were you on?
Oh, like a people carrier or something like that, or a mini moke or something. I can't remember. Yeah. But anyway, that's the fascination of the great wide expanses of Australia, Sandra.
That's exactly right. They do take a long time to get across.
Yeah,
they certainly do.
It's a bit like listening to Porky. It takes a long time to work out what on earth he's talking about. Sandra, delightful as ever to talk to you. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
It's always my pleasure.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah. What on earth you were banging on about iron ore for?
Because iron ore's important.
Well, it might be.
The trouble with you is you can't embrace anything which has a serious relevance to the world economy, to the way things happen.
No, the point is you can't just launch a question like something out of the top of the financial report without actually prefacing it with some explanation as to why.
Well, most people know.
We were just talking about sharks and about the difficult situation with the Prime Minister, and then suddenly you come out with, and is the economy suffering because of the iron ore problem with China? I mean, hello. What have you swallowed a bloody FT or something?
Well, didn't you know about the iron ore problem?
Well, not specifically.
Well,
no.
I tell you what, mate, as it's one of the major bulwarks of the bulwarks of the international economy.
Bulwarks is all I know.
The international economy. It affects China, the fastest growing economy in the world.
Really?
The trouble with you is you're just pig ignorant. You're just a thickhead who doesn't understand economics. You don't understand economics from soaperomics,
Soaperomics? No, the job of the journalist is to explain everything to people so that they understand what's going on.
Yeah, well, I did.
That's not what you did.
I don't have to explain the basics. Most people understand. I bet you 90% of the audience listening to us now and who'll be listening to our podcast tomorrow will understand immediately when I ask the iron ore question. Right. Is it the iron ore factor, Sandra? Yeah. They will click on immediately to what I'm talking about.
Maybe I'll give you a quiz on iron ore. Since you're such an expert on it.
Ridiculous. You couldn't give a quiz on iron ore, you fool.
You know what the quiz is on this week, don't you? Which you requested.
It's on ABBA.
It is on ABBA,
ABBA. And by the way, I'm always going to have a bet on myself to get 8 plus out of 10.
8 plus out of 10?
8 plus out of 10.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest
There's not much you can ask me about. You can tell me, you can question me about ABBA that I don't know.
Really?
Really.
Well, you heard it here first. I'm hoping the boys will have recorded that. Now, coming up in the next hour...
Agnetha was the love of my life when I was a mere stripling.
I'm sure. Well, there'll be plenty of questions about her and the other 5 members of ABBA as well, so don't you worry about it. Now...
the other who?
The other 5 members of ABBA.
Oh, really?
Well, don't you know about...
Trying to put me off already.
Don't you know about the secret member of ABBA? You better read up on it. Now, what about this appalling Merseyside derby? We had a fantastic weekend of football. We had that Tottenham Arsenal.
Who says it was appalling?
Well, it was an awful game.
Why?
Well, how many shots did Everton have on goal?
Not a lot.
How many?
One.
But
you've got to remember...
And what was the score?
Well, you know what the score was.
0-0.
Score. Yeah,
exactly. There was no score.
Yeah.
So it was an awful derby. By all accounts.
Well, not really, because these things are tactical. It's like a game of chess. You watch them intently and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, it was tense.
Awful.
It was tense because, of course, one mistake and on either side, and it would have been a miserable afternoon.
Well, it was a miserable afternoon for anyone who was trying to watch a decent game of football.
Everton's next game is at Chelsea on Wednesday night.
Live on Talk Sport. You'll be coming in afterwards, won't you?
I'm not going to the game.
No, I know, but you'll be coming in here after the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I can't possibly go to the game and concentrate on that and drain myself, exhaust myself physically, mentally, and then come in here and spend 2 hours talking to you about that game.
Yes.
Well, not 2 hours, obviously, we'll talk about it, but I mean, it will be relevant to our show that night.
Well,
obviously.
Roberto Martinez is also on the breakfast show.
Yes, I know. That's great, isn't it?
Looking ahead to that game.
Yes, great. What was it this morning that... Alan Brazil... long-standing colleague of us both.
Indeed.
Was tweeting out about how boring the Merseyside derby was.
Well, it was boring. So he wasn't wrong about that.
So in response, I did point out that, well, at least the Merseyside derby has been played between two top division teams, Premier League or First Division, for the last 54 years. Yeah. Which is a world record, by the way, world record for two teams in the same city to be in the top division together and play each other 54 years, right?
Okay.
And that the East Anglian derby, which takes place between Ipswich and Norwich.
The Old Farm, as it's sometimes known.
Well, absolutely. And the tractor boys, of course, who that's not being rude to Ipswich. Ipswich have a tractor on their club badge.
Yeah.
And the Norwich boys.
The place where nobody goes.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know how long it is since they played a top division derby between themselves, but I can tell you something, out of the last 54 years, I bet it's not more than 10 times.
Well, very possibly not.
Yeah, exactly.
Still,
so I pointed that out to Mr. Brazil.
But that does not mask the fact that the Merseyside derby was still rubbish.
Who, of course, had a very distinguished career with Ipswich and will have played in
Why
some of those...
Why changing the subject?
I'm not changing the subject. Why
can't you just admit it was a rubbish game?
I'm not changing the subject. I don't do that.
It was an awful game, wasn't it?
Look, it was a derby and it was a vital game for both.
Yes or no? Was it an awful game or not?
I think what the Liverpool fans got all fed up about afterwards is that it wasn't a resounding signing off for Steven Gerrard in his last derby. No. If it's his last derby.
Well,
his last derby.
I presume it is.
Well, it might not be, because they might get drawn against each other in the Europa Cup.
All right. The Europa Cup, that'd be good. Good morning, I'm Mike Graham and he's Mike Parry. You're listening to Two Mics on Extra Time. We're keeping you entertained throughout the night. Coming up in this hour, it's winners and losers. Toby Gillies will be coming in for another go at the Porkmeister to see whether he can get from 5-0 to 5-1. Porky's now showing me a picture of a big train carrying iron ore in Western Australia.
That's right,
brilliant.
I
had no idea.
And guess where this image came from?
Well, I don't know, the Iron Ore Weekly?
No. Sandra sent it to show us just the size of the train.
Oh, excellent.
Look at it. You can watch this for 20 minutes.
It's just gone. The train's gone.
Oh, it's gone, right.
The train's passed. Oh, yeah. Well, took about 10 seconds.
No, it didn't. No. I was showing it to you, wasn't I? I wasn't watching
it. No, the train took 10 seconds to go past. Anyway,
they're huge. These
be quiet for a minute. Look into the light for a second. You're listening to Extra Time with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on Talk Sport. The train going by.
No, I don't.
It goes past in about 10 seconds.
No, it doesn't. These are all different trains. No, you think that they're all different trains.
But every time you show it to me, it's
that
gone.
That one's blue. This one's
gone
blue.
Again.
This one's yellow. See?
Why is your phone not on silent anyway when you're in the studio?
Well, I'd like the audience to pick a bit of the atmosphere and also... Look at this one, see? What are you laughing at? Hey? Do you like watching pictures of trains?
No, I don't, actually. I couldn't care less.
Brilliant. Anyway, just to prove to you...
Can you turn it off now, please?
Yeah, I'll turn it off.
Thank you.
That was sent to us by Sandra. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah. She gets into the spirit of things and helps me by giving me evidence to prove that I talk a lot more sense than you do when I'm discussing the world iron ore problem, which is very important.
I don't doubt that there are many, many trains which are very long in Australia, which is a massive country, and they transport their stuff by train. I was once stuck at a level crossing in America, funnily enough, and I made the mistake of letting the train go by. It was one of those big goods trains. I was on my way to find something to do with Madonna.
Where was this again?
It was in Michigan somewhere.
Michigan, right,
and I was trying to find this guy's house, and I came to this level crossing, and the lights were on, and I could see the train coming. They don't travel very fast over there.
Right.
So I thought I could actually just make it across.
Right,
but I thought I better stop and wait. And if this thing took 25 minutes to go past, and I was just sitting there going...
What, the train took 25 minutes?
25 minutes.
What was the train made up of?
Well, it was just loads of goods wagons. I don't know what was in them. Might have been iron ore, for all I know.
Yeah, well, exactly. So you got found out.
But it took a very, very long time. Now, have you seen this story talking about selling out Birmingham and another live show coming up at the Hen and Chickens, which is also sold out, unfortunately? We'll have to do some more shows, by the way.
Yeah, okay.
Have you seen Tom Stoppard's latest missive?
Well,
in which he comes out and basically says that the audience are too stupid to understand his plays.
I mean, have you seen it? I couldn't believe it. I was reading reviews in the Times, okay? And, I had to keep up with what's going on in the theatre and all that. And what he's actually saying, now, this is the first time Tom Stoppard's written a play for 9 years. And it's called The Hard Problem, okay?
Yeah.
First play for 9 years. Obviously, Sir Tom Stoppard, internationally recognised, award-winning playwright and all that kind of stuff. Written lots of great stuff, hasn't he? Can't remember the name of any of these others. I was just looking for the name. Sorry, yeah. But he has. And But anyway, what he basically said is, apparently at some of the previews, the audience didn't laugh in the parts where he thought they should be laughing.
Right.
And it was because, apparently, according to the reviews I've read, because I'm not a great sort of theatre goer, I have to say...
I thought you were quite a theatre goer.
No, I'm not, no.
With all your thespian friends, do you not get lots of freebies?
I get offered to attend a lot of opening nights and that kind of stuff, but I don't like to attend them if I don't feel I can get into the spirit of things, you know? And I'm not a great theatre goer. But anyway, point of this story...
Well, they can be quite long, can't they?
Yeah, and
you can't always get out to the bar when you want to.
Well, the thing about being in a theatre is you're trapped
in
right in the middle of a row or something like that.
Especially if you've been invited to an opening night. You can't just sneak out.
No, well, you'd want to, would you? Be rude. Anyway, the point is that in previous plays, he's put in things like references to Shakespearean quotes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
References to Shakespearean characters. References to issues which arose in, great literature of the past. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe Charles Dickens or something like that. And he certainly found in the previews that the audience weren't laughing at these sort of very clever and very artistic jokes spoken by the characters in his new play.
The protagonists, as we
them.
call them.
So he came out and he said, they don't get my jokes anymore. He says... Here we go. Theatregoers have become more ignorant since the 1970s when playwrights could rely on them to have a basic knowledge of Shakespeare's greatest plays. Says Sir Tom. It's very rare to connect an audience except on a level which is lower than you would want to connect them on. So he's basically saying he's got a high intellect and he's not sure that the audience is up there with him. He said this during a talk at the National Theatre where his new play, The Hard Problem, opened last month. You could raise it a notch and you might lose an eighth of the audience. It's to do with reference and allusion. He said I've rewritten one scene 3 times between preview performances because I detected theatregoers were not getting the point that I wanted them to make. He didn't specify the scene.
That must be very difficult, though, if you are a playwright or even a movie maker of some description, and you put the thing that you've made, that you've spent the last, 2 or 3 years or maybe 5 years in front of them, and they don't laugh when they're supposed to laugh.
He said, in the end...
very debilitating.
I totally agree. He said, in the end, bit by bit, by preview 4, the audience made the connection, and I must say that I was completely wrong in assuming the audience would understand it, and I really resent it. So he's got a problem now with his audiences in future, in my view, because that is a very stinging condemnation of the intelligentsia level of the people who fill up theatres.
Well, except that, he's such a renowned playwright. I'm just reading here that he's basically described as one of the most internationally performed dramatists of his generation, because he's written a load of screenplays as well. He wrote a screen for Brazil, for The Russia House, and for Shakespeare in Love. He's got 1 Academy Award. He's got 4 Tony Awards in America, in New York, which is a very high accolade. The only one I think I've ever seen, funnily enough, is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, which I saw when I was very young.
Right.
I haven't actually seen any of the others, bizarrely.
Oh, OK.
Which is kind of slightly shocked me.
I don't think I've ever seen one.
I would have thought I would have seen some more of the Tom Stoppard stuff.
No,
I don't think I have.
No, what, are you a theatre goer?
I used to go to the theatre a bit,
you don't know,
not
obviously,
so much anymore.
Working times. But he goes on to say, he wrote a play in 1974 called Travesties, and he said, in those days, the whole audience understood a reference to a scheming character in King Lear when it was first performed.
Right.
The main character is told, you were a wonderful Goneril at Eton, Henry. And he said everybody knew Goneril was. I must admit, I don't know who Goneril is, do you?
No, I don't. I was hoping you might inform me.
Sounds like somebody with a sexually transmitted disease, doesn't it?
I don't know why I thought you would say that.
Yeah, but, but he was apparently a character in King Lear. But I
so
think
we've now gone from Newsnight to the South Bank show.
Yeah, exactly.
We do everything on this show.
Yeah, we do everything on this show. I studied playwrights at school, and my favourite was Arthur Miller.
Really?
Yeah, and I could dictate
What's your
almost...
favourite Arthur Miller play, then?
Death of a Salesman.
Really?
Willie Lomas.
Yes.
OK?
Willie Loman.
Willie Loman.
Yeah. Not Willie Lomas.
Willie Loman.
So that was Steve Lomas. He used to manage Millwall.
Right, Steve Lomas.
Yeah.
Used to be manager of Millwall, didn't he? Yeah, that's
Did you see the Alf Garnett version of that?
No.
With Warren, what's his name? You know, the guy who used to play Alf Garnett.
Warren Mitchell.
Warren Mitchell played the lead role in Death of the Salesman. It was really good.
Well, I thought it was brilliant, and in fact, we enacted it once, as part of our A-level course and all that kind of stuff. And I was the son who, you're going to say this was in character. I was the son who was constantly looking for attention with his parents by walking in all the time and saying, I'm getting married, I'm getting married, you know, I'm getting married.
We knew that couldn't have been you.
Sorry?
We knew that couldn't have been you.
Yeah, well, that's true, yeah. And, of course, Willie turned out to be a bit of a serial cheater, didn't he, when he was on the road as a salesman and he was keeping the company of loose women and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, Arthur Miller was such a fascinating man.
Yes.
Because he was married to Marilyn Monroe.
He was indeed.
I mean, how could one of the...
I've seen the house that they lived in together in Connecticut.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
In Connecticut? That's interesting. Because he was one of the great American brains...
Yeah.
And she was one of the great American airheads, without being rude to her, you know what I mean?
That was her reputation. I'm not sure if that was actually true.
No, I'm sure it's not true. People think that Katie Price is an airhead.
Yeah.
In fact, she's an incredibly clever woman.
Yeah.
She's built up a multi-million-pound fortune, and she deserves everything she gets.
And don't forget, when Marilyn Monroe was alive, you know, it was a very different time, and women were looked upon as either being, you know, very, very good-looking and stupid, or quite intelligent and not very nice to look at.
I totally agree with you. And considering that Marilyn Monroe was passed around the political circles in Washington, D.C., you know, really like a... I don't know, like a toy, really. I mean, it was outrageous,
Well,
wasn't
just
it?
between the Kennedys, really.
Well, not really. She wasn't Peter Lawford involved as well. And
well, he was part of the Kennedy clan.
He was, yeah, that's right, and all that kind of stuff. But you know, Joe DiMaggio, the baseball player, he was one of her husbands.
He was.
Arthur Miller, and a few others, weren't there?
But she had a couple, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
let me read you this from Dave the Milk, who's tweeted, I think, a very, very important piece of information.
Right.
He says, "Thanks so much for the iron ore update, Mike.
Yes.
I was wondering what the situation was."
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Do you not get the irony of that?
No, you think he's taking the mickey, don't you?
Yeah, I think he is.
I don't think he is. I think people are very interested in these subjects because it's something you never stray onto, and by the time I get into
maybe we should make it a regular feature of the show. Porky's iron ore update. You could let us know every Monday night.
I mean, don't be ridiculous.
You could look through all the iron ore speciality newspapers and bring us, you know, the cream of the crop on the iron ore update.
I mean, don't be ridiculous. Look, it's our job to keep our audience informed.
It is,
and it's not just iron ore they need to know about.
No.
They need to know about all those minerals and things.
All those kind of metals, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. It's not just metals,
what
is
about
it?
copper?
Now, copper, that's interesting.
Is it?
That's interesting. Do you know why? Because, you know, for years, my dad wore a copper bracelet.
Yeah, a lot of people thought it was good to ward off pneumonia, didn't they?
Arthritis, I think.
Yeah.
I think it was worn to arthritis. And do you know what? I read a piece in some medical magazine last week to say that there's a lot of truth in the fact that copper really can be beneficial to the...
Or rheumatism, was it? I'm thinking, when I said pneumonia,
arthritis,
I think rheumatism, yeah.
Yeah, I said arthritis, rheumatism, yeah. And it really, you know, anything copper-based now can actually help you a great deal indeed. And in fact, apparently, there are some designers now who are deliberately... putting copper into their designs.
Are they?
So, for instance, you know, you might have a very expensive jumper or something like that. It might have on the inside of its sleeves. What are you laughing at?
I'm just wondering about somebody with some copper wiring inside their jumper.
It is that sort of thing. They
you go through one of those airport security screens.
Well, you know, you'd have to explain, wouldn't you? But
so why have you got all this copper wiring up your jumper?
No, it's not copper wiring, you fool.
Don't you think they might not let you on the plane?
Your sleeve, which goes round your wrist, might have a copper loop inside it, you see what I mean?
Yeah, it still looks like copper wiring, though,
It's not copper wiring, is it? I mean, look, we've seen plenty of crazy designers, haven't we, over the years, who put all sorts of metal and wood and stuff into their clothes, you know what I mean, to make them look zany. By the way...
Wooden stuff?
Yeah, they do.
I've never seen any wood in clothes.
Yeah, they do, honestly. You know, all these international models wear it. Have you been keeping up to date with the Alistair McQueen book?
Yeah, I have, yeah. Have you seen The Time, by the way?
Yeah, well, don't worry about that.
No, I am worried about it. We're all worried about it.
McQueen, an amazing character.
Yeah, I know, absolutely.
You know, world-class design and all that, but full of demons.
He never made anything with wood, I don't think. And losers. Derek in Painkillers in Wales has sent a couple of messages in.
Yeah, go on.
He says this, a message for Porky. I don't care about the shortage of iron ore in China, he says.
Who doesn't?
Derek.
Yeah, but Derek lives in Pencorth, right? And if you live in Pencorth, you've probably you've probably never been out of Pencorth all your life.
Well, I'm sure that's not true.
Probably gone 2 miles down to the end of the high street at one end and 2 miles at the other, right? And far from not caring about the iron ore output of Australia and how much is being imported into China, you don't even know how much coal they're producing in the Ronda Valley these days.
No,
and
not very much, I think.
Well, I was going to say, considering most of the Ronda Valley closed down about 30 30 years ago, the answer is none.
Well, you don't want to upset all the people in the Ronda Valley like you upset all the people in Sunderland last weekend.
I'm not upsetting people in the Ronda Valley. The Ronda Valley is a beautiful place. It's just there aren't any coal mines there anymore.
No.
And that is one reason, by the way, why ever since the coal mining industry closed down in Wales haven't got any good rugby players anymore because they all started playing rugby
won
in the coal mining villages.
last year, didn't they?
No, that was Ireland.
I was the year before, wasn't it?
It was the year before.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and by the way, Russell Hargreaves is going to be here this week. He'll be giving you a hard time because you told him you didn't think much of Stuart Lancaster in his PE teacher's ways.
That's true.
And then England went and won.
They did, and I was very proud of them. It was excellent. 10-0 down after a few minutes. Everybody thought they were going to get battered, but they showed tremendous fortitude to come back. That's what I like.
So you changed your mind then?
Well, I haven't changed my mind because I think it's a one-off result. Still don't think England will win the Six Nations or the Triple Crown or anything else. But we'll see, won't we?
OK. Now, listen to this from... who is it who's put his name down? Oh, it's Nathan in Margate, aged 19. He says, I'm a regular listener to the Two Mics, even though I have to be up for work at 5 a.m. every weekday. Could you please give Mike the Prodigy Parry more airtime? I only tune into the Two Mics as I learn something new on every show due to the Prodigy Parry because of his great intelligence and knowledge in a massive variety of subjects. I feel on a regular basis MG tries to drag the Prodigy down due to MG's jealousy and narrow-minded opinions towards the Prodigy. MG should be privileged to be in the same room with Prodigy Parry, as I know that I and many others would. Please take this advice on board, MG, because the Prodigy doesn't need to deal with your corrupted and shameful views on life.
Well, see, that's a pretty full analysis of you, isn't it?
I don't think so. I think Nathan's got it all wrong.
I think Nathan's an extremely intelligent and well-read young man, and I want to thank you for that contribution because it shows that it's not just me who thinks that MG has a problem trying to cope with the breadth of my knowledge.
Now, as we move on through the papers, have you seen the story on the front page of the Daily Mail today?
Well, it's amazing, and I've been saying this for years. The headline says, butter isn't bad for you after all.
Right.
Major study says 80s advice on dairy fats was flawed. I knew this all along.
Yeah.
I knew this all along.
Yeah.
Do you know what is one of the nicest tastes in the world is fluffy, fresh white bread, okay?
Straight from the bakery, warm.
Straight from the bakery.
A bit warm.
Well, no, because it melts the butter. This is my point.
Yeah.
Or a baguette, right, a French baguette or something like that. Lashings of butter, you know, full cream butter, Kerrygold or New Zealand Anchor butter.
Do you prefer salted or unsalted?
Lightly salted, right?
Yeah.
And then some lean ham or cheese or something like that. There's nothing better.
I couldn't agree more.
Right. And so ever since this daft advice in the 80s about don't eat butter, I've been doubling up on my butter because I knew it was wrong. I mean, the point is, you know, only 1/3 of my heart works, Mike. But I wasn't,
I've never known.
No.
You've never mentioned that before.
Well, now don't be facetious, but I've never been afraid to put dollops of butter on my bread because I love it and it's good for you.
Yet another question mark over your alleged health situation.
Yeah,
right?
What do you mean my alleged health situation?
Because
you're trying to question the fact that I've, got a critical heart condition.
Well, I do sometimes wonder.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Given the types of food that you eat, I would have thought that you'd be on a very strict diet, administered by your health.
Well, I pretty well am.
By your health administrators.
I've never been told not to eat butter.
Why?
Well, because, perhaps the doctors who look after me have got more common sense than to believe these scare reports from the 80s that butter's not good for you. How can butter not be good for you?
Well, I mean, because it's very high in fat, right? And
it's not anymore.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but surely in terms of the last 20 years, the amount of stuff that people have done on research on cholesterol levels and all that kind of thing, which is supposed to clog your arteries and all that sort of
rubbish.
Stuff. So they're saying that's all not true now.
Well, let me read you to you. Guidelines that told millions of people to avoid butter and full-fat milk should never have been introduced. The startling assertion challenges advice that's been followed by the medical profession for 30 years. Experts now say the advice from 1983 aimed at reducing deaths from heart disease lacked any solid trial evidence to back it up at all. Guidelines, the first of their kind, were introduced when as much as 1/5 of the average British diet was saturated fat like butter, cream and fattier cuts of meat. Britons were advised by an official dietary committee to cut their fat intake to 30%. But now, however, some scientists even say the advice is responsible in part for the obesity crisis because it encouraged an increase in carbohydrate in our diet.
Well, I'll tell you what these politicians and these politicians, their ridiculous health scares have done. We talk sometimes about how the dairy milk industry is on its knees because the supermarkets won't pay enough money for them to actually produce it. If you look at one of the graphs they've done inside the paper, it shows that in 1975 there was something like approaching 3,000 millilitres of skimmed milk, of whole milk rather, per person per week drunk back then. Now it's down around about 300.
Right.
So
saying it's been reduced by 90%.
It's been reduced by 90%.
Incredible.
Because people have started drinking more skim milk. The result is that people are drinking less milk in general.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the whole milk figure, they've lost literally 90% of their business. Yeah. Thanks to all these people who don't drink. I, by the way, drink whole milk.
Yeah,
Always
I do.
Have.
I do. I love it. Yeah. Now, the point is, in the old days, when you got your bottle of milk at school, there was one choice of milk and it had a silver top on it.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you go into the supermarket, you've got blue, which is full-fat milk, and that's, devil milk and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Then you've got green, which
Remember
is
the gold top one they used to have?
Yeah, I do, yeah. And then you've got... Well, that was the famous line in Ernie, the fastest milkman in the West, wasn't it?
Was it?
Yeah, the last line, you know.
Remember.
Lying in bed, I heard a rattling at the gate. Was that old Ernie with his gold tops? On heaven can wait, or something like that. But that was the end of Ernie, and he drove the fastest milk car in the West.
Yeah.
Who was his opponent?
I can't remember.
10-ton Ted from
Very
Teddington.
long time ago.
Yeah, 10-ton Ted
you
from
remember all this
Teddington, who drove the baker's van.
Yeah.
By the way, in Teddington, they have those film studios, don't they?
Yeah,
Very
and they have
famous
the locks
over the
as
years.
well.
And the locks, yeah. But the film studios, where many, many great productions have been made, like some of those programmes that I review. Like
TV studios, weren't they?
Yeah, TV studios, like The Avengers and The Professionals and all that all made there. They're all being converted
Thames
into...
TV used to
Thames TV used to run it, yeah. Anyway, all now being converted into luxury flats.
Oh, are they?
On the edge of the river.
Will you be
there.
buying some of those?
Well, I might go and have a look, because, it's a lovely part of the world, you know what I mean?
Certainly
Anyway,
is.
getting back to the diet and the milk and all that. So I've been eating butter, loads of it. I love butter. Yeah. Sometimes I go out and buy a French stick, right? And the French stick is crusty all the way down.
Yeah.
And I chop bits of it off, and then I smother it in butter, full butter. I love it.
Do you buy the spreadable butter, or do you buy the big chunks of butter?
No, the stuff that you have to dig into, so to speak. You know what I mean? The spreadable's not good enough. What I really like is getting it out the fridge and then scraping it off the top so it all curls up a bit.
Doesn't it make a mess of the bread, though, when it's that?
No. I press it into the bread, press it fully into the bread. And then...
It's very French, that.
Yeah, it is, yeah. And then a covering of strawberry jam. No. And there's not a nicer meal in the world to start the day.
Well, it's not really a meal,
wonderful. Is it? Well, it is for me. It's
for you?
Yeah. It's
a baguette and butter and strawberry jam. But this is my point.
Absolutely wonderful.
I mean, how can that be
wonderful.
good for... That's not good for you.
Well, look, this report says that butter's not bad for you anymore.
No, I've
known it.
No.
I work on my instincts, not on daft ideologies.
Yeah, but I can't believe that nobody would have told you that's probably not the best thing for you to start your day with.
Well, they've tried to over the years, but I don't run with the pack, Mike. I'm a leader, not a follower. Yeah. I wasn't born to follow. That was Steppenwolf, wasn't it? Right,
I don't think it was Steppenwolf, no. It might have been.
Yeah. Now then, this comes at the same time of another situation I was going to relate to you, health-wise, because we keep our eyes on health on this show.
Of course.
Canadian researchers have shown we spend more viral particles... Hey? Oh, no, we spread. Canadian researchers have shown we spread more viral particles when taking painkillers for flu and may suffer for longer than if we battle on unmedicated.
Oh, yeah.
One possibility is that drugs lower fever. Viruses find it harder to replicate at a body temperature over 37 degrees.
You see that thing the other day, by the way, before I say, have you seen the Times? We'll have to take this up in a minute.
Yeah.
But you see that statistic the other day that the government said 97% of all of their flu jabs were completely worthless.
Are now completely hopeless.
Well, you had one, didn't you?
I had one in October, and I've had 2 bouts of flu since then. Very quickly, British research has also found that ibuprofen might prolong colds. How about that? People take it to get rid of their colds.
Astonishing.
Professor Paul Little from the University of Southampton, fine university, found those using it were more likely to go back to their doctor with unresolved symptoms. Ibuprofen suppresses inflammation, and it's possible it also suppresses an important part of the body's response to infection.
Really?
How about that?
Why are you saying it weirdly, though?
Well, I'm not saying it weirdly. I'm just trying to...
Ibuprofen.
Yeah, well, I'm enunciating the word in case people aren't aware of it. Like people aren't aware of iron ore, except that they are. Everybody knows.
Well, they are now.
Well, of course they are now. Do you think we build bridges in Britain?
Hey?
With iron ore. Where do you think we get the iron ore from?
Well, obviously China.
No, Australia.
Oh, I thought you said it was from China.
No, Australia exported to China. And because China aren't buying as much, that's why the Australian economy is taking a bit of a hit.
Goodness me.
You should follow the plot a little closer, Mike.
Nonsense.
You should.
Look into the light for a moment. Winners and losers with Toby coming up next. This is Talk Sport Extra Time. We are the Two Mics. There will be a podcast, of course, coming out a little bit later on this morning. Keep an eye on at the Two Mics Twitter feed to find out when that's coming out. Right now, it's time for another reenactment of the big battle that we have on a Monday night every night. Of course, it's Toby Gillies against Mr. Mike Parry. Currently 5-0 to Mike Parry.
Yeah.
But Toby valiantly is continuing to try and put a dent in the record. So,
I feel a bit like Derby County did that year. They were in the Premier League and I think they ended up with 11 points in total.
Right.
Well, but they carried on right throughout the series.
Yeah, they don't just give up and go, we're not playing any more games.
No, absolutely
Well,
not.
I walked into a pub the other night and people
How
said...
unusual.
People said, oh, Mike, Monday night on TalkSport, you're going to be up with the winners and losers. And I said, yeah. And do you know what they were chanting? Toby, Toby, nobody. Toby, Toby, nobody. Toby, Toby, nobody.
I don't believe that story.
Well, it could have happened.
It could have happened.
Could have happened.
Well,
because you're known as nobody out there. You know that, don't you? You're known as nobody.
I don't think that's true.
Toby, nobody.
I've never seen that before.
Oh, well, I have.
You need to show me where.
Let's not have enough of any of this about ill feeling. Now, Toby, we'll let you go.
We'll let you
go first with the losers of the weekend.
Yeah,
what are your three nominations?
Well, my first loser. Let's go serious to start with. My first loser of the weekend, by some distance, is jump racing.
Okay.
Now, obviously, we've all heard about AP McCoy. He is an absolute legend. We are losing, I think it's fair to say, possibly the greatest sportsman of his generation. Not just greatest horse racer, but the greatest sportsman of his generation. AP McCoy, 19 consecutive champion jockey titles. He's going to make it 20 this year, almost certainly by April. He's beaten, just imagine being Richard Johnson. It's a little bit like being me in Winners and Losers. Richard Johnson has come second to him 15 times out of those 19. It's going to be 16 at the end of this year. And I just think that we can't think too highly of AP McCoy, and it's a big loss to jump racing.
He only ever won one Grand National.
I'm going to change the format this week slightly. Yeah. You're allowed to respond, and you will be allowed to respond to his.
Yeah.
But very quickly, what do you make of AP McCoy's nomination?
Obviously brilliant, but the reason he clocked up so many numbers is he rode in so many more races than other jockeys.
Well, maybe.
Other jockeys were more selective in the races they took and they didn't take. And for instance, for professional for 20 years, only won one Grand National. Lots of other jockeys have won more than one Grand National over the last 20 years. Also, I think he's won 2 Cheltenham Gold Cups, yeah? And lots of jockeys have won more than 2 Cheltenham Gold Cups over the last 20 years. So, look, I'm not knocking him. He's outstanding in his longevity and his contribution. But I just think that it was because he was so intensely determined to ride so many horses every day that those numbers clocked up.
Is
for
it
him.
a great loss to jump racing or not?
Well, the bookies would say he is. The punters would say he is.
Well, the bookies surely wouldn't say he is.
Well, no, I think they will, because it stimulates interest in a race if AP McCoy's riding in that
but they
race.
lose all the time
Well,
because
no,
he keeps winning.
The bookies never lose.
I think he's won 1
No,
in
but
3.
they lose on him a lot.
I think his average is 1 in 3
Jump
races.
racing, it's a big loss to
I think
jump
the bookies
racing.
will never, ever be in the losers' column.
No, you're probably...
Exactly.
Yeah, no,
All right,
you
let's
are
go
probably
for your
right
second
with
one.
it. The good old-fashioned wristwatch.
Wristwatch?
Definitely a
Jolly.
big loser this weekend because it's turned out that universities are now banning watches. And this is in case students cheat in exams. And that's because these idiots at these universities can't tell if the watches they're wearing are smartwatches or not. And there's a fear they could be sent sort of notes and stuff. Now, as an horologist,
that's bonkers, isn't it?
which, as you're
You're
well
both
aware,
kind of an expert on watches.
I am an horologist. It's an industry I care for greatly. It's already in trouble because of the mobile phone, the wristwatch industry, and this is another hit that the watch industry could definitely do without. Real danger.
Anything to say about that one, Porky?
Well, it's a bit off the wall, isn't it?
Is it?
A bit left field.
Yeah.
And all
Well,
that
you
kind
like
of
a left
stuff.
field answer.
Well, who says that? No.
You tend to come in quite left field.
No.
true, actually, yeah.
I work in isobars.
You're going to have something about the weather, are you?
I rest my case.
No.
All right,
Isobars
number
connect
3.
things
My
at the
final
same-
one is something I've been running in my news bulletins over the last few hours. Health and safety campaigners. They are the losers of the weekend. There's so many of them around telling everyone how dangerous our roads are that they've convinced young teenagers it's too dangerous to cycle. Now, this is a big topic that I know you, Mr. Porky Parry, are keen on talking about. Obesity, it's on the way up. It's killing more and more people.
It is.
And an incredibly safe method of transport with the right training could save some of these people. And they now can't do it because these idiots are making them too scared. If some of these idiots started training people to cycle instead of telling them how dangerous the roads were, we'd save a lot more accidents and we'd save a lot more lives.
Well, maybe.
Well,
Also,
some
I'd say
very,
about
some
that,
very interesting
I don't
losers.
understand how a country can have a rising obesity problem and yet, according to the church, a massive increase in the number of food banks needed to keep people from starving. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Well, those are his three. Let's hear your three.
OK, without a shadow of a doubt, it's so obvious that it smacks me in the face and it will smack everybody else in the face.
Quite like to smack you in the face.
Well, don't try it. Don't try it.
Let's not have any violence,
Don't try
please,
it.
in the midst of the game.
It's got to be Pellegrini. Pellegrini lost his job on Saturday, even though his team managed to grab an equaliser in added on time.
What do you mean he lost his job figuratively?
He's lost his job. He's 7 points behind Chelsea now. He's not going to get it back. He's not going to win the Premier League.
Well, he hasn't actually lost his job.
And the two titles that City have won, one under Pellegrini and one under Mancini, they've not won them with any panache, have they? The Mancini one was literally in the last minute of the last game of the season, and the Pellegrini one was because actually Jose just got his tactics wrong in the last couple of games, and Liverpool imploded. So it's got to be Pellegrini as the biggest
I'm not
loser.
keen on that.
But I mean, he hasn't lost his job because what if he wins the Champions League?
Well, he's not going to.
Well, who says?
I say he's not going to.
He could.
Now, the next one is Andy Murray, the Lions, and English cricket. And do you know why they're all losers?
How?
Because Adidas have withdrawn funding to those three in order to put it into their Manchester United contract of £750 million. Okay, so these guys are now looking for other sponsors.
Well, Andy Murray's got one, of course.
Well, he still lost the Adidas one, which is the most prestigious one. But the third one, and I think this is the one that
Do
can
I not
match.
get a chance to respond to this?
Yeah, go on, have a quick
Well,
response.
Andy Murray has got Under Armour, and that was announced before the Adidas pulled out, and it's going to be exactly the same for the Lions. And quite clearly, Under Armour are the team to be with now when you consider some of the football clubs that are moving
Adidas
that
has
way.
always been the team to be with.
Really?
The three stripes, ever since you were a kid, you wanted a pair of Adidas boots, those three white stripes
Not
on a black
convinced.
boot. I'm sorry, but I am convinced. And the one from left wall to match your
Left
crazy left wing.
You don't
left
like
wing,
left
off
field.
the
You
wall.
just told me that.
That's why it's left wall.
To match your crazies is Newcastle Brown drinkers in America.
Yeah.
Because Newcastle Brown is going over to America, but the Americans, being like bonkers when it comes down to health, safety, food and all that, have insisted that they take out the ingredient that makes Newcastle Brown brown, because as far as they're concerned, it's toxic. Therefore, people in America will be drinking bottles of Nuki Brune without the brown in it, and therefore it's a calumny.
I'm not
Okay.
sure any of those are worthy. My new method, by the way, of allowing both of you to respond to each one has been a complete disaster because we've now
running
almost
out
run
of time. I thought that might happen.
I'm going to actually award it to Toby for jump racing because I think that's about the only sensible one that's in there. In out of all
What
of
about
those.
Pellegrini?
Well, Pellegrini,
Who's going to
you
get
started
it?
off with saying Pellegrini's lost his job.
We'd
Well, he hasn't lost his job.
Better go to the winners then, haven't we, very quickly.
Let's hear from the winners. Three winners. You
Right.
go first, Mr. Parry.
OK, Lewis Hamilton is the biggest winner because Nicole Scherzinger and he have split up again.
Right.
And that means his mind is now clear to retain his Formula One World Championship without having to deal with the emotional turmoil of an on-off relationship. The second winner, Daniel Levy. I've been a huge critic of Daniel Levy, the Spurs chairman, for so many years, but he's actually got it right this time with Pochettino and Harry Kane. And the third winner, because this is going to happen, in my view, Steve Bruce offered £15 million to take over Fulham, even though Steve today said it was poor journalism, rubbish journalism. There is no smoke without fire. When Fleet Street get their teeth in the story, it's usually true.
What, you're saying it's a good thing if he goes to Fulham?
What I'm saying is he's a winner if he gets a £15 million contract the twilight of his career.
He only gets $15 million if he gets them up this season.
We haven't got any time for any conversation. Right, Toby, you're three.
My three winners. My first is Ivory Coast. Lost in the Africa Cup of Nations final in 2006 and 2012. This was the last chance for the golden generation of Ivorians. Toure brothers, Kalou, Gervinho, all of them playing together to win a trophy. They finally did it in the most dramatic circumstances, beating Ghana 9-8 on penalties. My next winner is Ajax. They've loaned out their goalkeeper Mickey van der Hart to the Go-Ahead Eagles. I'm sure you've heard about this one, who they played in a game 2 days ago now. It was 1-1 in the 88th minute. A back pass to him. He's allowed to play, of course, against his parent club in Holland, unlike in England. He air kicks it, the ball rolls in straight behind him, and Ajax's title challenge does not take a massive hit because they are second and not top, and they needed those points.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
My final one is English top-flight football clubs and their players.
Oh, that's so nebulous.
Anyone who thinks we've hit the zenith for clubs in England...
You can't keep interrupting me, I'll take half a point off you.
Anyone who thinks we've hit the zenith for clubs in England, think again. Conservative estimates are suggesting the next domestic TV deal for the Premier League, which is announced later today, will see an increase in 45% compared to the last deal. Currently £3 billion. Next contract likely to be $4.4 billion. And, of course, that's going to be equally shared between the clubs when it comes in 2016.
Well, I'll tell
you
what,
winners there.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting winners there. Lots of them from left field, left wall, all over the place. But I think I'm going to give it to Lewis Hamilton because I quite like the thinking behind that.
Thank you.
Lewis Hamilton, who's now apparently able to concentrate.
He won the title while he was going out with her.
Yeah, I know.
She was there on the final day.
Yeah,
she brought him luck.
Who could forget?
Exactly.
I know, but the point is that I quite like
He's
the
now got to
thinking
defend
behind
it
that
again.
I don't like the thinking behind any of the others, but that makes it a draw again, so we'll have to have a double rollover next week.
Okay.
Can't I just have half a point?
So, so it's 5-0. It's 5-0
begging
still.
for half a point.
Well, that would give me a whole point then by now because we've drawn twice.
Yeah, but you've already had the double rollover that you lost last week.
Yeah, I know, but I'd rather just take a point from him, give me 2 half points, and then I've got 1 point in total.
No.
I can't believe you're now begging me to give you a win here.
I'm begging
I'm not begging for a win. I'm accepting the draw. I just want half a point.
To gerrymander the scoring system.
You have 1 point. He has 1 point.
Resist.
No, but overall, I'm talking about the overall score.
The overall score is 1-1.
You're still giving but of the whole series.
The series is still 5-0.
But
it can be 5-2
I'd like
next week.
2 half points.
Look at the light!
For heaven's sake.
It won't be 2 next week, will it? Because
pathetic.
I just keep losing because you keep sucking up.
No.
I just have a superior intellect.
If you up your game slightly, you almost won it today.
Toby,
nobody.
The truth is,
nobody.
There were 3.
Toby,
Sorry,
Toby,
did we
nobody.
talk about your dog that hit its own head against the wall and killed itself? Because frankly, that's how I feel every time I'm in the room
How
with
can you make fun of my little dog who's epileptic?
Shocking.
And bashed itself to death.
I'd commit suicide too.
Well, committing is what we know all about here. We are the Two Mics. Toby, thank you very much. We'll see you next week for a double rollover. This is Talk Sport.
Now, remember this music, Mike, don't you?
I do.
This is because they believe that you were infatuated by Jose Mourinho.
They used to always play this for Ben. I talked about Jose Mourinho. Now, people have realised, though, over the course of time that I am indeed a fair-minded and very fair broadcaster, and that I don't actually favour any particular manager or any particular football team in the Premier League because I don't support anyone, so therefore I can have that neutrality about me.
Yeah, but it's hard to shake these things off. But anyway, guess why we're playing that now?
Why are we playing it now?
I've just come across a survey which says Hull has been named the least romantic destination in Britain.
Has it?
In the run-up to Valentine's Day.
That doesn't surprise me, actually.
Now, you and I have talked about Hull before on this show.
We have indeed.
What have we talked about?
We've talked about the Humber Bridge.
Absolutely.
And the M63.
The Humber Bridge that goes nowhere.
You say it goes nowhere. It actually goes to Grimsby, doesn't it? We've talked about that. It goes to one of the busiest container ports in Western Europe.
Well, they'll say that, but I mean, basically, the reality of it is it really doesn't go anywhere. It's the road to nowhere, a bit like...
well, it isn't the road to nowhere, though.
Well, it's the road to hell, if you want it, but that was the Chris Rea song.
The road to hell. I mean, haven't you had enough of upsetting people in other parts of the country? You've already upset the Ronda Valley. The Ronda Valley tonight. Last week it was Sunderland, and quite a few people actually who are living in Wearside have been in touch over the course of the weekend.
I know they have.
Saying, why don't you guys come and do a show up in Wearside?
We'd love
because
to.
I'm sure Porky would get a very warm welcome, in inverted commas, after the things you said.
I love Sunderland.
You said it was an awful place.
I used to go there and used to go to Roker Park, right on the cliffs there, not the cliffs, on the coast.
The cliffs.
On the coast.
Dangerous cliffs, you might fall down them.
Yeah, well, that's right. And it was great. But no, look, I respect people from Sunderland and Durham and Wearside and all that. It's not a problem at all. I just made a passing reference to it. But
you went on about it for quite some time.
This is a proper survey, obviously done ahead of Valentine's Day, which is on Saturday, I think, isn't it? It's Valentine's Day?
Valentine's Day is Saturday.
That's right.
Will you be sending any cards?
No. Will you be sending one to Jose?
To Jose Mourinho?
Yeah.
Why would I do that?
No.
1, he's not a woman.
No.
2, I'm not in love with him. 3, I'm not in a relationship with him. So why would I do that?
We all suspect you're infatuated. But listen, I don't want to put the people of Hull down, but I didn't do the survey.
But I sense that you're about to.
But here are the least romantic places, right?
Yeah.
Number 1, Hull.
Yeah.
2, Birmingham. 3,
Birmingham?
London. Yeah.
Well, we're going to Birmingham in less than a month.
We are, so we'll knock that one on the head, OK? 3, London. 4, Blackpool.
London?
Yeah.
Who's done this survey?
Well, let me see who has done it. I don't know, really.
You don't know who's done the survey. So you're introducing something into this highly researched show.
It's a consumer website, that's all. You know, what people are buying for
Because normally
Valentine's
it's
Day and
something
all
like
that.
it's selling chocolates or flowers.
Yeah. But anyway, let me go on. 6, Glasgow.
Yeah.
So that won't surprise you. 7,
No,
Coventry.
it would surprise me. Glasgow's a very romantic
I
city.
think it is as well. I like Glasgow a lot. 7, Coventry. 8, Swansea. 9, Liverpool. 10, Sheffield.
Swansea I could go along with.
That's a bit harsh, isn't it? Swansea. Now, that's not me talking. It's just a survey. They could be wrong. Funny that Hull comes up like that. Perhaps it's the influence of the Humber Bridge. But the most romantic places, well, London was named as both the third most unromantic and the first and the winner of the romantic one. That's strange, isn't it? How do you do that? Anyway, outside of London, it's the Lake District and the County of Cornwall. How about that? Most romantic places.
The most romantic? Well, the Lake District is very romantic.
Of course it is.
And Cornwall is very romantic. But
Yes.
a bit like I said to you before, some of the most romantic places or least romantic places really depend on who you're with. I think it depends on where you're going and what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, I totally agree.
You were belittling my suggestion of this the other day.
No,
I mean, you can have a very romantic weekend at home if you're at home with the right person.
Of course
you don't
you
have to go anywhere.
No, I totally agree. But let's face it, romance in a relationship lasts, how long would you say it lasts? About 18 months?
Yeah.
About that, isn't it? And then it's dead, yeah?
What, the romance?
Yeah.
No, not true.
Of course it is.
I wouldn't say that.
Well, I don't think romance in...
But you've never really had a long-term relationship, have you?
Yes, I have, yeah.
Well, how long?
5 years.
I thought it was 5 years.
Yeah.
5 years with the same woman.
From the age of 16 to 21.
Right.
Okay, that was very romantic.
Well, you see, that was when you were a child, though, really.
Well, not a child, but I mean,
No, you're
certainly
an
a
adolescent.
teenager.
You're an adolescent. Since the age of 21,
yes,
you have not had a long-term relationship with anyone.
It depends on what you determine as long. 18 months, maybe?
No, I wouldn't call that long.
Wouldn't you?
No.
18 months, 12 months?
I would say it has to be at least 2 years.
2 years, maybe 2 years.
And you probably have to live with somebody, actually, for 2 years.
Yeah, well, I'm not keen on living with people because it restricts you so much. If I got married, I'd make sure we lived in, like, separate locations on the same site.
Would she, probably. So would she.
Well, it's more practical.
Yeah.
It's more practical. I mean, if I'm going home now and I'll get home about sort of 4:30ish or something like that,
right,
then I'm only disturbing my partner's sleeping pattern by climbing to the same bed as her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I would have a separate suite and all that kind of stuff.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having separate bedrooms or separate parts of the house that you can retire to if you need. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. That's definitely a recipe for success.
Absolutely.
However, I just think that... you're wrong to say that romance, because some people have a romantic sort of relationship with their partners their entire lives. Don't they?
Maybe they do. They say that absence makes the heart grow fonder. I sincerely believe in that.
Do you?
I sincerely believe in that.
Well, it depends what you do when you're not there.
Well, yes. I mean, if you're misbehaving, obviously, that's not a good thing.
Well, sometimes that's difficult to avoid.
But for instance, living down in Portsmouth, right, as I do now, or on the coast there, I get so much feedback from people who say that, you think servicemen's marriages would be on the rocks all the time because they're away for such a long time.
Yeah.
No, they're not. If you go and see all the marriage guidance people, they're very solid marriages. And a lot of that is to do with the fact that the guys are away, they come home, so they have intense bursts of romantic
but you see, that's kind of not realistic, is it? That's not realistic in a way.
It is, because the average length of service they do is between 3 and 4 years. So it's not something that goes on for 15 or 16 years.
But
then,
but then again, you would say once that's over, and they may correct me if I'm wrong about this, but if that's been, say, the first 4 or 5 years of your marriage, and then suddenly you're together all the time, you might suddenly find, actually, we don't like this very much.
Well, you may, but then again, it's a change, isn't it? And change is as good as something else.
As a rest.
As a rest.
They
rest
say.
as good as a change.
Now, I'll tell you one thing about Hull, because I've only been up to Hull once in my life, and it was during, when I was working for the Express, actually, there'd been this terrible story of a woman whose husband had been murdered.
Right.
And so we had this kind of campaign going to raise money for her so that we could launch this private prosecution. Oh. And very kindly, some restaurant owner up in Hull said, we'll throw a fundraiser for this woman. Okay. So I drove all the way up to Hull.
Excellent.
Went to this very nice restaurant for the night, and they collected about 15,000 quid for it or something. But anyway, before we went out for dinner, we went to this pub in Hull, which was near the hotel we were staying. I can't remember the name of the hotel, but it was the first place I've ever seen chips on pizza.
Oh, blimey.
First and only time.
Yeah, I wouldn't fancy
and
that.
I looked at it and I thought, this place is a bit odd. And apparently it's a local delicacy. You have
very
chips
high class.
literally on the pizza.
No, I couldn't get on with that.
No.
Having people in your car like that is always a strain, isn't it? It's a stress because you've got to sort of look after them.
Yeah, but I was working.
Do you know I had to take down to Dover once? Vera Lynn.
Did you?
Yeah, and it was
down to the White Cliffs.
Yeah, down to the White Cliffs.
And you didn't and then you didn't know the verse of that song that we played you in the quiz.
Blue
Yeah, but do you remember we played you the second verse?
Yeah, I know. Well, nobody knows the second verse, do they?
So you had Vera Lynn in your car.
Yeah, and she's a national treasure, obviously. And I thought, what would happen if I crashed now and killed Vera Lynn? You know what I mean? Who's the,
Yeah, you wouldn't be very popular.
I had to get down there to rendezvous with the photographer.
What sort of car did you have at the time?
Oh, Ford Cortina.
Really?
Yeah, and
how shocking.
Yeah,
she must have been a bit embarrassed.
And it was going to be, it was like an anniversary of the Second World
What sort of
War.
way is that to treat a heroine?
What do you mean?
Just stick her in the front of a Ford Cortina with Mike Parry
It was
Daily
all right.
Express.
I went around, picked her up, and I took her to Dover. It's as simple as that. But I did think all the time, every time we passed a car or there was a car passing us the other way, I thought, I bet you don't realise that Vera Lynn is in this car.
What's Vera Lynn doing in that car with Mike Parry?
Exactly, yeah.
What did you talk to her about?
Oh, all sorts of things. I told her my dad was in the Navy during the war, and how her music had, kept the boys' morale up and all. She loved hearing all that, She was a wonderful person,
nice woman.
actually. Yeah,
what sort of age was she then?
Well, I think she was in her 70s then, to be honest. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah, I suppose
so, yeah. And, but I always found it a bit of a strain trying to, create conversation with somebody who's in the car with you, you know what I mean?
Were you smoking in those days as well?
No, I wasn't smoking.
No?
Why would I smoke?
Why do you say that as though it's such a surprise question?
In a car with Vera Lynn?
Well, I don't know. Well, if you're on, but that's the other thing. If you're on a long journey with somebody when you're a smoker,
Yeah.
at some point or other, you either have to stop and get out and have a fag.
No, you don't. If
Or
you've
you
got
have to turn to that
self-control.
person and say, "Excuse me, do you mind if I have a
Got your
cigarette?"
self-control, you don't.
Do you mind if I have a
goodness
cigarette?
gracious, if you and I ever go out to a restaurant, something like that, the number of times you have to dash out, like you did at Crystal Palace,
Yeah.
to have a cigarette every 20 minutes, it's pathetic.
Well, it wasn't
Absolutely
every
pathetic.
20 minutes. It was
Listen,
about once or twice an hour.
I want to tell you something just before
Yeah, 'cause we're
we
nearly out of
finish.
time.
I know, this is brilliant, right?
Yeah, go on.
Now, remember in the past, I've talked about Liverpool teams of the past and their
Yes.
goalkeeper, the Flying Pig,
Eh?
Tommy Lawrence.
You've never called him the Flying
I
Pig
have,
before.
I have, honest to
Why
God.
was he called the Flying Pig?
Because he was a big fat guy and he played...
Tommy Lawrence. I remember Tommy Lawrence.
Yeah, under Bill
He wasn't
Shankly.
fat.
He was. He had
particularly.
his jersey, his green jersey, used to look huge like a balloon. But get this is fantastic. I just read this morning,
Who
right?
called him the Flying Pig then?
Oh, all the Everton fans called him the Flying
Well,
Pig.
that doesn't mean he was known as that by the Liverpool fans.
I mean, he was successful. Shankly produced some successful teams. But this is fantastic.
Understatement of the night so far.
Yeah. I want to tell you this, right? What are you laughing at?
Shankly produced some successful teams.
Well, he did. He didn't.
Well, of course he did.
Shankly had some barren years. Shankly didn't win anything for about 6 years, from about 68 or something till about 74 or something like that. In fact, it might have been longer. I think they Liverpool won the league, the cup in 65, the league in 66. No, they didn't win it until 74. Right, let me tell you this. Ahead of Saturday's Merseyside derby, which happened last Saturday, obviously, the BBC sent a reporter out into the streets of Liverpool to ask members of the public if they remembered the FA Cup derby game from 1967.
You're not going to tell me that they interviewed a guy who played in it, are you?
Hang on. And
Everybody knows this story.
What story?
You're going to tell me the story of how they interviewed the guy that had actually played in the game?
It was Tommy Lawrence.
Yeah.
It was the Flying Pig.
Oh, was it Tommy Lawrence?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually went to that game in 1967, by the way. I went with my dad. So imagine the reporter's surprise when one old gent replied, "Oh, yeah, I remember that game very well. In fact, I played in it." Totally by chance, they'd stopped former Liverpool goalkeeper Tommy Lawrence, who played for the club from 57 to 71.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It is incredible.
That is absolutely incredible.
It is also incredible.
I didn't even know the Flying Pig was still alive.
Well,
So, Tommy, if you're listening, or any of your relatives are, salut.
Salut.
I thought I'd salute you for a great career.
Very good, absolutely right. But thank you very much indeed, Mr. Parry. You will be back, of course, at 2 o'clock tomorrow morning, when it will be time for some a Parry-losophy, which will be obviously of some help.
Parry-losophy tomorrow.
It's Parry-losophy tomorrow. And then, of course, it's the ABBA quiz on Thursday, which you've now very confidently predicted you're going to get 8 out of 10.
And in between that, of course, Porky Vision. Have I got some programmes to review for you this week? I've been watching. You bet.
Thank goodness for that. This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mikes.
Look at the light!
Don't forget to follow the Two Mikes at the Two Mikes on Twitter and on YouTube. Just look for Two Mikes TV.
Do you know what? I think cats' brains are controlled by a force outside the knowledge of a human being. What are you laughing at? I do.
Some kind of cat master.
Yeah, I do.
So where does the cat master live?
you know, I think there's a planet out there somewhere which
planet?
beams thoughts directly into cats' brains because they're so sinister and so sneaky and so...
Well, they're very self-contained, aren't they? That's
they're
the word
evil,
I would
aren't
use.
they? They're
No,
cats, they're evil.
they're not evil.
They are. What would happen if I crashed now and killed Vera Lynn?